Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for joining this month's session. So we have a couple of things to do in this month's session. Let me share my screen. So let me so so this month we will be looking at Lambda triggers and integration with SQS and S3 and SNS. We already did the trigger for API gateway. Now this time we'll look at it uh, from a different perspective. So how do we do these integrations with other services? We'll do a quick recap of what is the API gateway integration, but apart from that, we'll see that S3 buckets, objects, and SQS integration. We can look at SNS integration also, but that belongs to one of this category. So we can stop or we can do that if time permits. Let's see. And I'm still a learner, so apologize if I do any mistake. So what do we do today? So we are going to focus on Lambda triggers, AWS API gateway and Lambda integration, AWS integration with S3, AWS integration with SNS, AWS integration with SQS. So the API gateway with Lambda integration is synchronous integration. And Lambda integration with S3 and SNS both are asynchronous invocation, and Lambda integration with SQS is the polling invocation. So let's see that. Please fasten your seatbelt. So there are a lot of things we need to cover. So this picture I have taken from the documentation. AWS documentation. Okay, you can see this over here. So before that, we will see this documentation for a moment. This one. So here, like synchronous invokes. So synchronous invocation are the most straightforward. That means the client will invoke and it waits. So that's like a request response kind of invocation. So it makes a request and it waits for the response. Okay. So the other one is asynchronous invocation. That means it invokes, the client invokes the caller, the caller invokes a callee, and it will not wait for the response. So this is asynchronous mechanism. So other one is poll based. Poll based means the Lambda or the program which it needs will be constantly polling. So one of the thing is like change detection in DynamoDB and Amazon SQS. So these kind of things. So this is the one which you can see that synchronous. So now if you see that Amazon API gateway, so Amazon API gateway is what happens is it will Amazon API gateway, it will when we invoke the API gateway, so the API gateway will invoke the Lambda function, and the API gateway will wait for the response. So it's not going to like fire and then it forgets, but it waits for the response. Okay, and that's a synchronous one. We'll see each and everything. So asynchronous event is like you see the S3 buckets or simple notification service, like someone uploads an object. So someone uploads an object that will get uploaded to S3, and S3 will send a request to Lambda. And then there is something known as a stream or poll based. That means there is Amazon DynamoDB, or there is a simple queue notification service, SQS. So these two things, someone either change that or they drop a message. So Lambda will continuously hold the changes. So here, if you see that in the first block, API gateway will send uh, when someone hits an endpoint in API gateway, that will hit the Lambda function. Okay, that will hit the Lambda function, and that way it will wait for the response. That is synchronous. And asynchronous, what will happen is, like, you continuously send the request, but you don't wait for the response. So when the request comes, the Lambda, it will hit the Lambda function asynchronously. So it's not waiting for the response. Here, polling, what is happening is, any changes you update, delete, or add a record, or you drop a message in the queue, that change notification will be notified. So this is polling mechanism. Constantly poll it. Okay, there's one more good article I have piled up here. We'll spend some time on this. So AWS Lambda invocation types, Mehmet Osaya. So you see that Lambda synchronous, Lambda asynchronous, and Lambda event source mapping with polling invocation. Okay, so synchronous invocation is a trigger by push model, execute immediately and wait for the response. Asynchronous is a trigger by event model. Okay, execute asynchronously and don't wait for the response. So event source mapping invocation, that's the third type, like a polling based, is triggered by poll based. That means the Lambda function receives multiple items. So here there is a detailed description, like how the things works synchronously and asynchronously. And you can see that this is an event based, like someone drops a message in the S3 bucket. So that will trigger an event. It gets a message and it forgets about it. All it does is it gives the message to Lambda function, and then it goes to the DynamoDB. Okay. And Lambda event source mapping with polling invocation. So this will, what will happen is, here you can see this AWS SQS. People will add items to this one. So here Lambda function is polling, and it takes and it does the further processing. Okay. So that is the one which we will be doing today. So let's start from that. So we'll see that AWS API gateway and Lambda integration. So let's focus on that. Let me come back to this one. I will spend 5 minutes of time here. In the previous episode, we have seen we have 3 Lambda functions. Each one was receiving different inputs. Like if you see get employee by employee ID receives an employee ID, get all employees doesn't receive any input, and post employee receives a employee data transfer object, which we save it. This one we have seen it to a decent extent. And then we saw one thing, creating the API gateway proxy request response. So that means when we are doing the API gateway integration. And in this integration, what is happening is we are receiving the input as part of the API gateway proxy request. So API gateway proxy request, what happens is it will here, if you come and see this one, so input can be received from multiple places. So as part of the body, as part of the request, as part of the query string. So here it is coming as part of the path parameters because that's the query string. If you see the image in the previous diagram, this one, you can see this slash orders. So slash orders is the endpoint. So the request will be received there. So here slash employee slash employee ID. We'll see that in a minute. And that's what we will be processing. So for that, I have given the repository where this entire code and documentation is there. I will share the link of my repos. So this is my repository, main repository. And this is the one which is there. And there's one more where I am storing the here in this Lambda's demo, you will find all rest of the things. I mean, I'm doing still some enhancements, so I'll check in that. Okay, so let's do our first experiment. It's not an experiment, we'll see that. So we have, in this first one, we have this input JSON. So as we were mentioned, it comes as part of the path parameters, the employee ID. So let me take this. And this is the API gateway hits the Lambda function. Lambda function goes and hits the DynamoDB. So there is a 3 layers there. So if you see from the pictures or this one, so API gateway hits the Lambda function. Lambda function hits the DynamoDB. There is no SQS here in our case, but the API gateway hits the Lambda function. Lambda function hits the DynamoDB table. Okay, so that's our integration. Let's quickly see that. So how do you do that? You can come to the AWS Explorer, and here is an API gateway. Right mouse click and view function. And there's a local test tool that we are getting it as part of the AWS Explorer. Now this employee ID doesn't exist. Now it goes try to retrieve. So it says that status 404, the record not found. If I give a valid employee ID and invoke this, we are getting the employee record. So now let's come back to the Lambda function. This is the Lambda function. This is the Lambda function. Let's wait there. Okay. Now, if you see this Lambda function has got trigger. So right now we are focusing on the trigger, but the destination piece will look at some other places. So here we can see this, the synchronous invocation, we have chosen Amazon API Gateway. So coming back to this one, here you can see under the configuration, it shows the trigger. And it shows that what is the API gateway and what is the resource path. As I was mentioning, the resource path will be /employee/employee ID. Okay. So from this picture, where is this? Yeah. From this picture, you can see this. When someone hits, it hits on the endpoint. So this endpoint here is /employees/employee ID. This is the one, right? So another thing is, if we go from the API gateway perspective, here we were seeing from the here we are seeing from the Lambda side. Let's see from the API gateway side also. So when you come to this here under Amazon API gateways, let's see that what is that we have. We have employee CRUD API. Okay. So employee CRUD API, you can see this is the resource /employees/employee ID. Under that, we have one get method. That's the retrieve get employee by ID. So we configured that get employee by ID, that Lambda function. You can see that Lambda function has been integrated over here. We saw this in depth in the previous session. So this is the one which doesn't exist. So when I send this, you can see that it gives us the status 404, the same status we have seen here with the AWS Explorer on Visual Studio 2022. So similarly, we are seeing that from the console also, API Gateway console. Now, if I give the employee ID, which exists in DynamoDB, now you can see that it gives this one. Now you can compare this message pretty clearly here. Status code is 200. Everything is good. So now what we will do is, let's see for a minute DynamoDB. I'll open this DynamoDB for a moment so that we can see the DynamoDB table over here. Let's explore the items. We have employees, and we got E101 employee. So 101, 102, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 1 to 7 rows are there. So the key thing here is, this is like a request and response, as we have seen that when API Gateway sends a request, it also waits for the response. Okay, that's the key thing here. So another thing what we can do is, here can come onto the monitor and you can see the invocations here, like how many times this was invoked. You can see all the invocations over here, and you can check that what was the invocation. If you want to go into the details, you can click on that, and you can verify. It comes to this CloudWatch, where it gives you an extra information like what did it start, any logging which we do it from within the from within this one, it will be done there. Okay, so that's what I just wanted to quickly recap that. So when you do the integration, you can see from the both sides, the side of the API where it gets integrated. So we can create this, and if you want to do anything new, here itself you can add a method. Okay, you can create a resource or create a method here itself. Like if you want get all, so you can do a get method and add it. But as of now, our API gateway function has got only one method. It doesn't have other methods. So that was the reason we will make it a logical closure there, and we might come back in future. But the first thing is, we have seen in the Lambda triggers, the synchronous kind of triggers we have seen. So when we have an API gateway, it will have an endpoint. When someone hits that API gateway endpoint, that will hit the Lambda function, and retrieves the response. Now let's go to the second type. This one we have covered. Let's go to the second type of Lambda integration with S3, asynchronous invocation. So in this asynchronous invocation, employs S3 trigger. Okay. So in this, what will happen is we will create a separate Lambda function, and we'll add the trigger to S3. So anytime someone uploads a file, and that will get the trigger. So we can further work on that in a deep dive, like someone uploads a file like an images, so we can take that information and drop it in a queue. So machine learning algorithms can go and verify that the image is according to the rules we have specified. Like if you want a picture very clear of a human, and someone is trying to add a picture of a building or a car or a dog or something like that, and the application mandates that it should be a human picture. So someone uploads the picture, and then that can trigger the AWS Lambda, which can do some kind of validation or processing on this one image, and whether it can approve if it is fitting all the requirements, or it can reject, or it can put it in some other queue for manual intervention as a second opinion. So there's a lot of things which we can do. So now let's see this. How is this being done? So S3 buckets. So I'll show you real quick creating this one. It's not a very big thing. It's a very small one. See this, we are just writing what was the input which was received, and we are just retrieving the object metadata. I just want to show you some other things. Just wait. Just give me a minute, please. I come in here and see this. We can do all those things, like copy that object or put it in a separate queue. Okay, we can get the policies or lifecycle configuration. A lot of things which we can do here. Okay, see this. You can have a lot of options here. Okay, one of the option is to get the header type. Okay, list the objects or parts. Multiple things are there, but for us, let's keep this simple, because we'll come back and revisit each and individual service. But this session is purely focusing on the AWS Lambda integration. Okay, so we are logging it, and then we are logging this one. So let's see how can we test it. So what I will do is I'll come back to the Lambda function. Let me close this. Let me close this one also. What is this? This is a queue. Okay, no problem. Let me come back to this Lambda functions. There are multiple Lambda functions. So this is a S3 trigger, so which I created around 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Yeah, around 2 a.m. this morning I did that. So I'll keep this, and I'll create V1 of that one. Let's see that. So the good thing is to investigate, like whether our code is working or not. We have a mock tool which will help us with the mock messages also. like if I make this as a startup and execute this, it's coming here. And what is happening is it will have an S3 put. It creates a mock request. So what it is expecting is the bucket name and the file name. Right now it is a dummy bucket name and a dummy file name, which doesn't exist. So if you execute this one, it will fail. It will definitely fail. So what we will do is we'll go back to this and go and get the details of an object which really exists. Now, if you see that, a couple of things we need to understand. One is the region is West US2. So I need to check, even though this S3 is global, you can see that it is not, everything is disabled. It's not selecting, but at least you see that in which region it is getting created. So to match the West US2 region, if we can drop somewhere here, okay? So I can come back to this one and I think I've created a new bucket. Which one is that? I think this is the one. When did I create it? I created employees file, one bucket I created last night. One second, I think that was in this. Let's see this bucket. Yeah, employee files. So what I'm telling is, let's take this as a bucket name and give it here. Okay. And this is a file name. The file name is not happy face JPG. It is PNG. When I execute that, so it goes and gets the details, and you can see that input received for this bucket and this bucket, and why it's not from the same US West 2. It should be employee files like this, because that's a key. So that is the entire key. I'll show you how to get the key. So it clearly shows that it is a image.png. Now if I come back and give the readme file details, I give the readme file details. So that's within the folder. So that entire thing will become the key. I'll show you how to get the key. Now see, this is binary and oct stream. It's not the image. Now how do you get it is you click on this link and here is the key. Okay, here is the key. You'll get this key, and from this key you will do this one, right? So this is one thing, and we will see how to upload it from here. And before that, I would like to give one more tip. is that if we go to this is the Lambda function, and it has got this trigger. And another important point is under the configuration, you have permissions. And inside this permission, you can click on this. And you come here and I've given Amazon S3 read-only access. And also Amazon S3 object Lambda execution policy role. So there are two types of roles. One is the AWS managed, one is the customer managed. I just added specific permissions for SQS. I mean, we need to go ahead and do the least privileges, but I've given everything because this is just a demo. So I just want to make it something work real quick instead of going and do a cherry picking one by one. I just added. So the policies are very, very critical. So this S3 bucket to this Lambda is working pretty seamlessly. That's because the proper policy has been created and has been assigned. So that's the reason the things are working beautifully. Okay. So if not, it will be a lot of problem if it is not assigned. So now we'll see the real-time one more scenario where we will upload one file to this one, and we will see that integration now. So let me come here and click on the monitor, and we'll see this invocations here right now. It shows the invocation. Sometimes it takes time, but let's see how quickly we are able to do that. So I'm doing one more upload, and I'm saying add files, and I'm going to add this one SQS polling 1 PNG. Now I did that. Now you can see the permissions and properties. A lot of other things will be there, so which we are not going to change anything. All I do is I just click on upload. Now what is happening is it is uploading the file. So now it has properly uploaded the file. Now you can come and see this one. This file. You can see that this is a bucket name. Under buckets, you can see this bucket name. From here, everything is the key. The same thing you can see here. Employees file. See that? Employees file and SQS polling -1 PNG. That everything is this one. Okay. So we did this. Now let's come back to the Lambda side of the world. And then we do wait for this for some time. It will not take much time, but let's see. What did that we do? We do close and okay, let's give it 1 or 2 minutes. Let's come and verify this again. Let's go to the log groups. There should be different log groups. One of the log group is this one. Why is this inactive? Okay. It's 10:34. Okay, I think this should be this. Yeah, this one. SQS polling. That is the image which we did. This is the latest image which we have uploaded. So let's upload one more because we know that where we will go and see that. I'll upload the SQS polling 2.png. Okay, right? So let's come back to this one. Let's go to the log groups, and there are 4 log streams. One was 1034, now it is 1036. We should see another log. Maybe it will take a minute or so for that to appear. So this polling 2 is the one which we uploaded. Okay, it's a pretty big one. And version subject. Let's wait for a minute. It should showcase. Let's wait. I think it's taking a minute or so to come from different places. Let's see. Are we seeing any traces here? See this? There's one. I think we need to get a second one also. Here it gives just a high-level details. It doesn't give anything more. We need to get into this CloudWatch logs to see that. Again, we are coming to the same log group. Okay, I think looks like here we have 2 things. One is, this is our latest one, polling 2, and polling 1 PNG and polling 2 PNG. And that is what here there were 4 log streams. I mean, the one which I tested last night was couple, and now there are few. Okay, so that's the second kind of Lambda integration which we have seen. You know what? This is the asynchronous. It's an event based. That means when something happened, it drops the message, and that message will be sent to the Lambda function. So let's understand that one more time. It's a pretty simple one. You can see that it's a trigger, and it is receiving the S3 event. So that is an event. It is receiving that event based. You can see the same thing in the picture. This is push. It's pushing the message or an request response mechanism. And this is an event based. So you upload something happened on the S3 bucket, and that event is being sent to the Lambda function. Okay, that event is sent to the Lambda function. Now let's see the polling based, and let's see that the polling based. So I didn't do the SNS because that also is of the same synchronous type, but that has got a different mechanism. I just pulled one architectural reference. Where is that? A good architectural reference. You can see this one. So like simple notification service, it's a topic based. Now bunch of messages are coming, and retail queue is here, wholesale queue is here, and price updates are happening. So from this notification service, we are notifying 2 different queues. So whoever are the subscribers for this topic, all the subscribers will be notified. And once you drop, this is again event based. Some message has come and hit this simple notification service, and the simple notification service is notifying all the subscribers who have subscribed for this topic. And that also is a queue. right? Simple queue service. And the other guy, the guy on the other end of this tunnel is the Lambda. So there's one Lambda to process the wholesale subscribers and one Lambda function for the retail subscribers. Okay, so that's one thing. So let's see the third kind of thing is this one, Lambda integration. Let me check because I'm the only one here. So I'm just periodically checking this. So this is the Lambda integration with simple queue service. Let's see that. How does that happen? So before that, let's quickly go back here. So here it is push, here it is event. Some event happens, it push the message to Lambda. So this is the stream, poll based. Okay, so let's come and do that. So I have created one more one. This is simple queue trigger. You can see the difference. You're getting it here. Simple queue service event. And simple queue event has got a record. A record is list of simple queue messages. Now, if you drop bunch of messages, it will come. Like it is for the scaling architecture. Like if you have a web API, which might be processing 1,000 requests per second or 1,400 requests per second or 2,000 requests per second or million requests per second. And based on the workload which is expected, the architects will design what compute we need to take, and do we need to do a horizontal scaling or vertical scaling? What should be the minimum compute? So the hardware capacity, with a given hardware capacity, the way we wrote the code, it will support X number of requests. So that's what maximum it can do. Even if you increase the hardware capacity, it might not, because that's how we wrote the code, with a given capacity of the hardware, and the way we wrote the code, it will support X number of units. To support more, we can do a horizontal scaling. Sometimes what happens is the processing or the computing power is low. In that case, we can do a vertical scaling. That means we can increase the hardware capability. That means it will process, like it needs a high processing thing. In that case, if you do a vertical scaling, increase the hardware capacity, so that will process more number of requests. In some cases where no matter what you do with a given type of coding, whether you keep it constant or you increase the hardware, it will process the same number of requests. In that case, we need to do a horizontal scaling. So that means we need to add second instance. So if one instance of X compute power, it is supporting 500 requests per second. If you want to support 1,000 requests per second, you add another instance. And with that load balancing, you will properly send the request to these two instances so that it computes and it supports 1,000 requests per second. If you want 1,500, you go more. So once you do the baseline scaling, once you do the baselining, and based on the baselining, you will do a horizontal scaling. And the decoupled one is this simple queue service. In that, what will happen is you drop the messages to the queue, and the serverless functions, where based on the queue, it automatically expands and shrinks. So if you're getting 2 requests or 2 messages per second, so it might scale. Suddenly there are 15 messages per second which is coming in. So it might scale more number of instances, compute all those messages. Once the messages start slowing down, the number of instances will shrink. So the instances will expand and shrink based on the number of messages you're dropping to this queue. Okay, so that being said, again we'll use the mock test tool first. Okay, this is the queue message. I execute the function, you're getting it. And also I have created a input JSON. Oh, the same message. It's not anything different. I just, let me close this. And let's come back to the Lambda functions. Let's go back to the functions. And let me close this and come back to the queue service. Yeah, here is the queue. So here is a queue, standard queue. And here you will see the SNS subscription. I didn't create it because I just want to focus on 3 different kinds of integration which we do it. So this is the third kind of integration. Let's focus on this. It has got the Lambda trigger, and you can see this. And again, on the Lambda side also, you can come and see this. That's the Lambda trigger. You can see under the configuration, you will have this triggers. We can have multiple triggers. We can add trigger from here also. You come here and you create an API gateway or CloudWatch, you DynamoDB, Kinesis, S3, SNS, SQS, okay, AWS Event Bridge also. It's supporting bunch of these things. So we have a lot of options like Apache Kafka and application load balancing, AWS IoT device, CloudWatch, and so the management and code commits. Someone commits the code. This is for the DevOps, which will come back in future, and Event Bridge, Kinesis for analytics, the messaging queue. A lot of things are there, so we can add it from here also. It's not that we need to do it from there. And one more thing I would like to focus on that, which we might definitely come back in future on that, the destination, like what should happen when someone drops a message in this queue. That message will come to this Lambda function. What should this Lambda function do? Okay, do you need to drop it to the another queue, another notification service, or put it in another queue, or one Lambda function calls another Lambda function, or put it in an event bridge? There are these destinations, asynchronous destination. Now, if you check, I mean, I didn't create any of those things, but if you see that asynchronous invocation, on failure, what should happen? On success, what should happen? You might have 2 different queues. Let's assume that someone has added a credit card or some kind of thing to process the order. On success, send it to one queue. On failure, send it to another queue. Something of that kind, we can do it. But let's focus on the integration piece now. And the key piece, what I was mentioning here, is the permission. And in this permission also, we have already seen it. I would like to emphasize it again, that we can come back to this. And here you can add permissions. Okay, you can attach a policy or you can create an inline policy. I'll show you both. Now click on an attach a policy. Suppose let's assume SNS. Simple notification service is the one which you're looking at. So what do you want to do in this simple notification service? Like you want to read that. Now, again, you can expand it and see that what all the things which it is giving. So get topic and list, allow. Or do you want to give full access to this one? Okay, we'll do that. Or I'll come back over here. Those are the AWS managed. Suppose you want to create inline policies, like you want to do there also you can click what is that you want to do, but here also we can do it. But this is an inline policy. Like I'll go to SNS. We will select this SNS. And I just want to list and read, not do anything. Okay. And again, I need to go and add to which simple notification service topic, which I want to do this. What is the account number? What is the region? What is the topic? So minute level, we can go and we can create it. So that's the one. So now we will come back to this queue and we'll send a message. What I will do is I will close this. Okay, I will come here and get employee by ID. And employee ID is E101. Okay, so that's the employee. Okay, now let's go to the JSON formatter. JSON lint. Okay, this is the one. So let's send this message. I'm sending, this is the message body. I'm saying send message. So view details, the message has been sent. So let's come back to this. And that's a Lambda trigger, which we have configured. And we can go to the monitoring. And again, we have given it a lot of time. Oh, I think it's only showing the 4. If I'm not wrong, this should be, yeah, it has got both. See that? Polling 2 and polling 1. We were waiting that it will show the 5th entry, but we were wrong. Actually, I'm wrong. So let's wait here. And this is a log stream. And 1054, that means the latest record, whatever we have sent. See that? E101 Srivaru, age 18, this one. The message which we have sent it just now was delivered successfully. This is the message we sent it. So that message was successfully delivered. You can see the monitoring. And you see number of messages received and messages sent. All these things it is showing here. The key thing is you can do it here. And also these kind of architectures with this simple thing. See that we are writing minimal code. And also once you create it, you got that. And you can click on add destination and you can further on successfully receiving the message. And what should be the destination? Like you want to put it to a separate queue. See that it gives us other queues also. Now see this, I got a message from SQS. Now I can send it back to some other Azure function, sorry, Lambda function, or another queue, or event bridge, event bus type. So those kind of things which we can do with this. So that's it from my side on this month's episode. So next month, what we will do is we will be focusing on container service. We'll start with container service, and slowly other services, whatever which we want to cover, maybe the S3 buckets, or more deep dive into the S3 buckets, and more on Beanstalk, or the Lambda integration, and simple notification service, simple queue service, little bit of small architectural series we'll do it. I mean, all the time we do some kind of integration. It's not like we do something, but what is the use? And we were going a little bit further. Now let's take one more step further, creating small application, maybe one API containerize, push it to the ECR, and then container service. How many ways we can do the container service? And there is a container for Lambda. So let's see all these container related and small mini project, or micro project, if not mini project, micro project kind of things we'll do. And thanks so much for joining, and see you next one. Bye.